Hello and welcome to my Retro Media Room. Today we're checking out 5 original Xbox games that unfortunately are not backwards compatible on current Xbox consoles, but are still worth checking out in 2024. If you like this sort of content, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to keep up with my latest videos. Please hit the like button to help me with the algorithm. Share it with your friends if you have anybody you know that loves the original Xbox. I'd really appreciate it, and we'll get started. And to start our list, we're going to take a look at 007 Nightfire, developed by Eurocom and released by EA. Now, I'm going to mention 007 Agent Under Fire. It's a decent game. It was the first James Bond first-person shooter to be introduced to consoles in the 6th generation, but Nightfire is a significant improvement over that game, and that's why it made the list and Agent Under Fire didn't. From the gun barrel sequence and Bond theme, to the unique song and intro with dancing and animations, to even the pause menu of a silhouette of a woman dropping down in fire and drawing her gun. All of this just oozes style of that of James Bond. So if you're a fan of the movies or GoldenEye 007, you're going to get a kick out of this game. Having said all that, while the likeness of Pierce Brosnan is here, unfortunately his voice is not. It's just some nobody actor replacing his voice, and it's not that great, to be honest. So that's a little bit disappointing, but not the end of the world. As soon as you boot up the campaign, they throw you right into the action with the sniper sequence out of a helicopter, while these cars are chasing an asset that you're trying to protect. And this is a good example of how the Bond point system works that reflects in your after-action report. For example, if you're just shooting these cars, about 3 shots or so, they'll just simply explode and you move on to the next scene. But if you shoot a tire and take them out, it's more cinematic. It shows the 007 emblem and you get more points. And it also makes the sequence easier because it took 1 shot versus 3. So that's just one example of many where if you do go the extra mile, you put in the extra skill and effort, and you figure out ways to play the game better, it actually rewards you with the Bond theme, the 007 emblem flashing at you, extra stylish versions of cutscenes, and so on, all to encourage you to play the game more like Bond so that you feel more like Bond. So it's pretty cool. What's also introduced in the beginning segment of the game are the driving missions, which are actually quite well done. And the reason it's well done, interestingly, from a developer standpoint, is that Eurocom developed the first-person shooter aspect of the game, which is the bulk of the game, but the driving segments were developed by a secondary team within EA. So due to the fact you had one team focused on the driving, the other team focused on the shooting, they came together, both being at a higher quality. So very interesting approach. I think it worked out for the game. What's also worth noting, the PC version of Nightfire, developed by Gearbox, has no driving missions in it because they focused on the single and multiplayer shooting. I thought that was pretty interesting when I read that. Even with the lack of video options, the visuals hold up quite well here with nice environments, character models, and especially gun models, very good reloading animations and sounds. So all of that looks and feels quite nice. There's a lot of GoldenEye DNA that's still here with the auto aim from the hip to the manual aiming with the target on screen, very much like GoldenEye. So if you love GoldenEye, you're going to appreciate the feel of this, which is a little old school at this point, but I like it. A lot of objectives and gadgets and Bond moves to pull off and different ways to approach missions where you can do more stealth, less stealth, bum rush it, do it stylishly, more like Bond would. It's up to you. And of course, that's going to affect your score in the after mission report. So all in all, I've always really liked 007 Nightfire. This was the last first-person shooter Bond game that they came out with for a long time until the Daniel Craig ones later on. And some of those are decent, but I think this was the last truly great first-person shooter Bond. It's going to be on a future list where I'm going to show the third-person Bond games. Those are fantastic, but Nightfire was unique, the fact that it was really the last first-person shooter Bond game at that time, and I've always really liked it. I liked Agent Under Fire. I know I've said it, but this was just such an improvement over Agent Under Fire. It really stood out to me. Next up, we have Freedom Fighters, developed by IO Interactive and released by EA Games. Heavily inspired by the movie Red Dawn, and similar to 2014's Wolfenstein: The New Order, which was a what-if scenario of what if Germany would have won, whereas with Freedom Fighters, it's a what if the Soviet Union were to become the superpower globally by them dropping an atomic bomb on Berlin and ending World War II rather than the U.S. dropping bombs in Japan, which ultimately leads to them surrounding the U.S. over the course of time, invading the U.S., and then American citizens becoming freedom fighters against the Reds. If you like Red Dawn and historically altered fiction, you're going to get a kick out of this game. Funny enough, the main character is, get this, an Italian plumber from New York with a brother that's also an Italian plumber.
It's me, Mario. Hello. I'm a Luigi. Ow, 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 ow.
I could not resist, and I am not sorry. One of the impressive things about this game is the 720p presentation, which was few and far between at the time. So while it's not backwards compatible, it almost looks like it's running as a backwards compatible game. Visually, it holds up really well with nice character animations and cutscenes, which oddly enough, the cutscenes are in 60 FPS while the gameplay is in a lock 30. So I thought that was interesting. Really impressive looking, expansive environments, lots of characters on screen, a lot of action. Really awesome urban warfare feeling, especially in one of the intros to the game where you watch like the handheld camera style cutscenes with everybody fighting on the streets. I've always really loved that urban warfare feeling, and the game really does capture this quite well. This is from the developer of Hitman 2, so the visual flair is just simply not lacking. They knew what they were doing at the time. Now, there are a few issues with the game I have to address. First off, when you activate 720p with everything hooked up correctly, it does present a few bugs in the game, particularly the sound glitches in the intro. And there's probably more bugs I'm not aware of. It doesn't make the game unplayable or anything, but they are there. But my single biggest problem with the game is simple: the lack of control options for manual aiming. Normally you would think, oh, I'm going to manually aim like any other shooter. I'm going to press left trigger to aim my gun. Well, no, unfortunately, left trigger is mandatory in jumping, while clicking in L3 on the left stick and holding it is manual aiming. It's like they had never played a game before, or they forgot what playing a game was like, implemented it, and did not give you the option to change it. I've always been baffled by that. Now, it's not game breaking. You're still going to enjoy the game. I love this game. In fact, it's one of my favorites from that era. But why? Why did you do this to us?
Why did you take my precious and make us the fat habits so precious?
Sorry, that was just some built-up resentment there. When it comes to the gameplay, this isn't just a simple solo venture as a third-person shooter. This is actually more of a squad shooter. You start off with 2 that you're able to recruit. You order them around to take cover, defend, attack, and so on. They follow you around. You can have up to 12. So this really, like I said, is a squad-based game. That's when it really turns into outright urban warfare where you're fighting legions of guys. So it really gets interesting in that regard. The game is very epic. Really, there's only so many games that capture this urban warfare like this. Maybe the likes of The Division kind of does. I mean, The Division's The Division. There's nothing quite like this, to be honest. I've always really liked Freedom Fighters. It was easily one of my favorite games for that generation, like I've said before. And I'm a fan of the movie Red Dawn. I love the themes of it. I love the fiction of it. So this is really, really cool. I've always appreciated this game. And this is one of those ones where all throughout the years, I've always recommended it to people. Say, hey, you should check out Freedom Fighters, because at this point, it's a bit of a hidden gem. Next up, we have a bit of a personal one for me. Brothers in Arms Road to Hill 30, developed by Gearbox Software and released by Ubisoft. So the reason I say that this is a personal game for me, my grandma bought this for me when it first came out back in 2005. Before she passed away, I actually thankfully got a chance to show her to her, brought over the console to her house and showed it to her. World War II is always meaningful to her because she actually was around during World War II. She was a little girl, and her older brother died in World War II as a POW, and her brother-in-law served in the Pacific during World War II. So my family has quite a few ties to World War II. Not only for the personal reasons, but I love this game because it's just a great game. It was mind-blowing at the time. It's probably my favorite World War II game of all time. If you're a fan of Band of Brothers, you are going to absolutely love this. This is right along with that, even retelling some of the same scenarios and some of the same people that were shown in that historically are in this, because this is based on events and people that actually happened during World War II. Gearbox went all out in making this authentic and powerful and well made. They did not phone this in. This is probably, I would argue, Gearbox's best work. Graphically, the game was stunning at the time. The colors have a natural feel to them where you really feel like you're looking out into the sky outside. And I'm talking kind of back in the day. Now it seems somewhat dated, especially the frame rate's pretty low. But when you look at it for the time, it was very impressive. Very impressive voice acting and character animations. You actually get to know the characters and care about the characters like you're one of them, like you're a fellow soldier. And I myself am a veteran, so I can relate to some of that. Gameplay-wise, this is not just a simple run-and-gun shooter, the likes of Call of Duty. This is actually more of a squad-based shooter, kind of like Freedom Fighters that we just showed. But this is even more impressive as a squad shooter than even Freedom Fighters because it has a very specific, well-done formula how you move your guys around going from cover to cover. And the key thing here is how you set yourself up to flank the enemy. That's the key strategy most of the time, is You set your guys up to shoot at the enemy in cover while you wrap around and flank. It's a lot of fun. It's very well done. There's a lot of variety with the missions and the type of missions and the different scenarios. There's even a point where you have a tank that you're ordering around as part of your squad. You can have 2 sets of 3 guys, a total of 6. And it's up to you how you want to use them, where you position them. Now, here's the thing. If you're not careful, because this game is fairly realistic, especially when you put it on the highest difficulty, which is actually interesting to do because it makes it where every shot counts. If you tell your squad to go somewhere that's strategically not sound, where you're putting them in line of fire, they will get shot and they will die. So you actually feel the weight of that if you get your guys killed. So you're going to be reloading saves in order to keep your guys alive because it really, frankly, sucks for them to die. Also, not like Call of Duty, you can't just spray and pray at guys and hope to win. You have to aim down sights. It's more realistic, where there's recoil. And when you land your shots, it usually only takes a shot or 2 to kill guys, especially shots to the head. So it's gritty, realistic, hard-hitting, really well-made, excellent stuff here. I've always loved this game. Even though Medal of Honor was the grandfather of World War II shooters, Brothers in Arms is what took it to the next level after Medal of Honor introduced it to everybody, particularly with Medal of Honor Frontline. Brothers in Arms, an incredible game. I've always loved it, and there is a sequel, and that'll probably be on a future list, where you play Red, and he's the main character in that game, and you play that. So what's neat about this, you got the field manual or handbook, but you also have a map in here. So a lot of these unboxings is just a manual in the game, but this actually has a map, which is very cool. Brothers in Arms, Road to Hill 30. And a lot of these, they really tried to recreate actual combat scenarios and locations. And I mean, anywhere from the loading screens to, I mean, look at, yeah, you can flank the enemy. See, that's why I'm talking about flanking the enemy. So yeah, Brothers in Arms, excellent, excellent game. Saving Private Ryan, Band of Brothers, you name it. This game is right up that alley. And here we have Deus Ex Invisible War, developed by Ion Storm and published by Eidos. Now, I'm not oblivious to the fact that this is somewhat of a controversial game. There are a lot of people that do not like this game, especially as fans of the first game. They thought this was inferior to the first game and a disappointment. I always disagreed. I've always really enjoyed this game. The first game is, yes, absolutely a masterpiece. And yes, this is more streamlined from that, which I can understand because they were trying to be a little bit more commercial with it. But the thing that cannot be denied is how incredible it is as a technical marvel. The likes of Doom 3, Chronicles of Riddick, Escape from Butcher Bay, and Halo 2 at the time on consoles. This game is nuts what it did on a technical level. It has 100% lighting and 100% physics. Anything that's not nailed down has physics applied to it. Any lighting source will cast shadows on anything. The game is actually dark to somewhat of a fault because it's using actual lighting sources for any given area, kind of like ray tracing. So this was pretty much the ray tracing of its day, because ray tracing, of course, didn't exist yet. So this was incredible at the time on consoles. If the PlayStation 2, GameCube, or Dreamcast would have even attempted to run this game, they would have just melted. The Xbox was the only console that had the horsepower and the memory to handle this game. But the frame rate suffers quite a bit for it, so you have to adjust to that. Otherwise, the variety of gameplay, all the different ways you're able to approach situations, whether it be through stealth, shooting everything up, hacking into everything, talking to different characters and dialogue options. There's multiple different endings. It's got an excellent story, which of course is not surprising because the first Deus Ex had a very excellent story, and this is no different. People might gripe about Invisible War to this day, but honestly, when you look at the fact that the last one was kind of lackluster, people should go back and appreciate what this game was for its time. There's also a lot of gun variety and ways you upgrade those weapons, melee weapons. So there's a lot of variety, a lot of different ways to approach all sorts of different situations. It's a living, breathing world. While somewhat enclosed, it's still very immersive and atmospheric. But once again, this game is an absolute technical marvel, more than most games I've ever seen come to console. Even to this day, not very many games have done what this game did. So Deus Ex Invisible War, I've always really liked it. Like I said, I disagree with the haters. It's not a perfect game, and I'm not saying it's better than the first one. First one's a masterpiece, but this is an excellent game that I've always really enjoyed. It needs a little bit more love. Oh man, if it were backwards compatible with better frame rate, that would be insane. So yeah, Deus Ex Invisible War, you should check it out. And finally, we have X-Men Legends, developed by Raven Software and published by Activision. So there have been many X-Men games all throughout console generations, certainly tracing back all the way to the original Nintendo, because I actually have one of those cartridges. The thing I wasn't sure about was, does it go as far back as Atari 2600? So I decided to Google it, and this is what I found. Yeah, that's not going to be on the channel anytime soon, but boy, did it make me laugh. Anyhow, X-Men Legends is really awesome. I've loved this game for many years. I beat it back in the day. I can comfortably say this is one of the greatest X-Men games ever released. One of the few that tops it is its sequel, which will be on the channel in the near future. This game is riddled with lore. If you love the comics, you're just an X-Men fan, you grew up with the cartoon like I did, whatever the case, there is so much to bite off and chew here. Just roaming around the Xavier Mansion alone, you just read lore, you listen to the characters, you explore, you do the danger room. There's so much here. It's just rich with characters and lore and their backstories, and the voice acting is great. Awesome dialogue. Also, Patrick Stewart reprised his role as Professor Xavier, which is really awesome. This is really, really well done stuff. And that's not even getting to the gameplay. If you're familiar with Marvel Ultimate Alliance, this is the same style of gameplay here because this is what predated that. Isometric view, hack and slash gameplay, special moves, RPG elements where you upgrade your characters and the move sets. You can put them in any order you like. Up to 4 characters you're able to choose on the fly. Also, as a really nice bonus, this is able to display in 720p, so the game looks fantastic. It's almost like it's already backwards compatible, and how clean it looks. Yes, there's also a PlayStation 2 version. It can't speak on the PC version, but this is the only way on consoles that you're going to play it at this fidelity. There's also a GameCube version, but pretty similar story there. So like I said before, if you're a fan of the X-Men and you want a video game that is faithful to the comics and the lore and actually tells you more about the characters, you want to learn more about them outside of reading the comics, which of course that's a whole ball game in and of itself, X-Men Legends is absolutely fantastic. I can't recommend it enough, especially 1 and 2. I want to cover 2 on the channel here soon because that game is incredible. It's even better, but you cannot go wrong with X-Men Legends. This game is absolutely fantastic. This was back in Raven's heyday. So that was 5 original Xbox games that are not backwards compatible, but you really should check out. These are, and in some cases, when they run in 720p, it's almost like playing them backwards compatible. They look so nice. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe and hit the like button. I really appreciate your time. God bless and take care.